Welcome to Self-Perfected.
Wait for this, guys. You ready?
Yeah.
And we're live with the Self-Perfected podcast, where we're podcasting perfection.
Wow.
That's pretty professional shit.
That's cute.
Damn, dude. Talk about level up.
Seriously. So happy you rent a podcast today.
Ah.
I even feel more like I'm just like, I need to be like more professional.
Yeah. You speak differently.
Yeah.
You're not going to talk about anything controversial anymore.
Oops. How's it going? We just got back from Florida. We just got back literally. Well, I guess you guys didn't. I mean, you're in Florida.
Yeah.
We just got back yesterday. No, the day before. We woke up yesterday. It was the first morning at home. And it's so nice to be home. I like going to events and stuff, but especially when you're driving there, because we drove with the kids.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
There and back, and plus putting on the event and all that stuff. So it was fun. Did you guys have a good time?
It was a great event. It was amazing.
Maybe we can talk about that first, because I got a lot of feedback from people, and they were saying it was really, really good. I was on the other side of it. I was actually working the event this time, and I know you guys spoke too. But yeah, what was y'all's perspective of it? Just for all the yeah.
Camera work.
In case
Cameron, there's like feedback from, like, I'm hearing my voice through your.
Really?
Well, I think it's like 1 year speaking.
I don't know what to do about that.
Maybe it's just a really sensitive mic.
But in the meantime, yeah, the event was like, it was perfection. It was so smooth. It was like this. The event was exactly what an event should be. It was a backdrop that went really smoothly to facilitate all the important shit that needs to happen at an event, which is people connecting, making decisions, leveling up. And there was no part of it that felt long. There was no part of it that felt unrelated. Like, every part of it was like, oh, it's over? Okay. All right, next day, and then you're obviously, for anybody who's been to an event, it's all about, the in between the sessions kind of thing. But the sessions were epic. Everybody who spoke was like epic, every single person. And I think really, like, obviously for anybody who came to the event, they know that it's like being united by purpose is just unmatched. And I think the cooler part is because it's never been done before. Like, yes, if you're part of some, multi-level marketing company or something, the purpose that you're united in is like making money. Like, yes, that is a purpose. But in terms of like real purpose or an ultimate purpose, like an underlying reason about why you're living your life, that being the common thread, it's unreal, man.
Yeah, because most, like, if you go to some other thing, it's like the purpose is more just like what's the word? It's like this pretend thing that's also very vague and undefined, that's really just trying to be used as a motivation to build the business.
Yeah.
When we really have it the other way around.
Yeah.
It's like the vision, the purpose is the point, and the business is to support that. And obviously they kind of work together back and forth, but it's like,
it's the difference between people coming to an event to try to take, nothing's wrong with taking, but where people only come to an event just to try to, like, I need a network and get somebody into my business and things like that. And for those of you here, I'm talking weird. I'm eating like a little, what's that, Ricola? Like a little lozenge candy thing.
Ricola.
Exactly. Versus everybody coming here, it was with the starting point of giving and receiving.
Yeah.
So it was like, hey, what can I support you with? Hey, great to see you again. What's going on in your world? You know what I mean?
I just had a clubhouse yesterday, and I had a few people talk about the event, because there were quite a few people who went to the event at the clubhouse, and one guy was saying basically how it was his first event, but he really felt that like no one was better than anyone else. He went there not knowing really what to expect, but seeing everything as just like, wow, this was amazing. I got some advice from some people, and then I was able to give some support to other people who saw me as like moving up and like recognizing what I was doing. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I can support others. And just seeing how this was the really cool thing that he said. He said, you know, a lot of times people will feel, and I'm paraphrasing, but a lot of times people will feel that you know, they want to do some good in the world or whatever, and they're going to do some good in the world. It's like, now I know that I can support others. Now I know because I'm actually doing it. I'm actually seeing like, oh, okay. And you know, it's obviously we have a business where we support other people, right? But then supporting each other, you know, supporting each other within our purpose is also really amazing as well. Seeing how we're like, oh, okay, you're doing this, you're leveling up in this way. Well, where are your challenges? And people being open about that. And that was something somebody else shared, just like being open, being like available to be vulnerable with each other, because we're not afraid of looking like some sort of like better than anybody else, or afraid that somebody's going to judge us in a way that's not going to be supportive. But actually being open and vulnerable, because like, oh, look, here are the challenges that I'm going through. I know these people will be able to support me in the best way. I know that they're actually interested in supporting me in the best way. And I'm ready and open to like actually change and challenge myself. So I can hear that support, which is really fucking cool.
It's such a good point that you mentioned, that this person mentioned, of like, it didn't feel like anybody was better than anybody else. Like, I didn't even think of that. But yeah, like other events that I go to, it's like, oh, I'm level this, and I'm, you know, it's like there's a separation.
Or also just like there's the person on the stage who's so much better than all of you, and they're going to teach you something, so you can try to be like that person. Like, and it's not that there's not an element of, hey, this person's sharing stuff from the stage at our event, so you can get support from it, but it's not a like, I think a large degree people are not going to get that sort of like, yeah, it's just like, it's like, oh, I can't be that person. So they then create, which is part of the problem as to why, you know, it's interesting. You really think about what we're sharing here. We've actually solved, and I'm not saying we, meaning like the people who put on the event, I mean, of us collectively, have solved the problem of, you know, like in Your Wish Is Your Command, when he talks about you go to these events and you just become an event junkie and you never do anything different. It's like, yeah, it's because you don't have the tools to change. They're not sharing with you the tools to change.
Yeah.
You're not, and there's no reason to change. When you go home, there's no shared common purpose. So you don't relate to the person who's on the stage. It's like you're listening to some guy who's like, I built $1 billion oil company when I was 20 years old. And you're like, okay, but I just want to make like a franchise of hairstylist studios or some shit. And you're like, there's no fucking point relating to them. And then it just becomes motivation. And there wasn't a lot of motivation. You know, I was even talking to a neighbor when I came home. They were asking how it went, and I was like, yeah, it was really great. It was a lot of work. We had a good time. And he was like, yeah, it must be, you know, really hard, like motivating people. And I'm thinking like, no, it wasn't hard. Like, and we didn't really motivate. I'm sure there was things that were motivating, but it's all internal. And I'm like, okay, get out there, you know, like there's nothing.
The most common thing that I heard, that where people drew their own motivation, was getting clear on the purpose, like the effect that we're already having, and being like, oh, damn, I just want to do this more. And we have a guy in our team, shout out Justin, we met. He's like started sharing with people like crazy. Drake, you've been seeing that in the chat, right? Started sharing like crazy, like, and then people are like, yo, Justin, like, what changed, dude?
What's text? I mean, with having
sharing our group, our purpose, like everything we're doing, where he shared it with 30 people.
Oh,
like
he shared with other people. Got it.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And he's just like talking to people, like anybody that's close to him. And he was able to get somebody to like commit to like, I want to change myself. Like, and people are like, yo, man, like, who are you talking to? Like, what are you doing? Like, what's different, you know? And he's like, oh, I just let go of my fear of like losing people and my fear of judgment of others. Think about that motivation. His motive, his why, like that part about why he was doing it didn't change. It's like he let go of something that was holding him back. You don't find that because you don't have the tools. You don't know what to look for inside of yourself and then how to then take it apart and let it go. But the cool part is Justin did that and it's reflected in what he's doing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he actually got from it. So I think really fascinating point of like that Drake mentioned, that somebody else mentioned, of you don't feel this inequality. Because yeah, throughout the whole thing, I'm like every single person had something to offer and something to receive. You know, where literally you can talk to any person there and just connect and go deeper. And there's no reason. That's what somebody was mentioning at our house. Of like, yeah, I just felt like I could just like jump into like real shit and don't have to like, oh, so oh, whatever, what do you do and blah blah. It's like how's your process? Like, what's the toughest shit you have to fucking walk through? And you know what I mean? Like, I need support with this or whatever it is, so that you have this whole group of people that are like equal. So it's just everyone's connecting with everybody. And then the cool part is after the event, right? Zoe and John walked through some cool points after the event, but based off of the event, they just reached out to certain people because they're like, oh, like, hey, I have this new connection. I can get support from this person, right? And just people having those different dimensions of like, oh, I realize the importance of connecting not just here, and then having a stable foundation as to why you would be connecting, knowing that that other person wants to give and receive. And like both people are like, yes, I'm walking the same process as you. I can give you some different angles to look at this point that you're facing of fear of judgment or fear of loss or whatever. It's like real support that's sustainable that can take you through after an event, which is really cool.
You know, another thing too, I got feedback on this is like, and also I'm just kind of like looking at the point, you know, you go places to get, normally you go to these events to get motivation and to get, people are looking for that one thing that's some kind of that's gonna change everything. People are not coming there to look for that. They may be looking for like, okay, what's this one point within me that I need to really face and I can ask people and get support on. But I mean, who goes to like events normally with that kind of clarity anyways?
Yeah.
More just like searching for like, oh, if I can just get around this one person, suddenly it's going to change my life, which is not what people are doing at our events. Also, what we're sharing as to, because obviously people are there, it's a business conference, if you want to call it that. It maybe doesn't feel like that when you're there, but that's the context of it. So the context being you're there to get support, motivation, and so forth to go back home, build your business further, you know, and this is not something new. We've talked about it going to Gen events. Every major group or company does these things. It's a necessary thing. And it's always funny when I talk to people, you know, back when we were doing Gen, where they had never gone for years and years and years. Now you're missing a part. That'd be like you're, you know, eating and you just never drink liquids. You know what I mean? Or you're bathing, but you just never use soap or something. You're like, okay, you're doing some of it, but you're missing a part of it that's necessary. Like, oh, you're so much. And I think really it's just fear. And the reason people don't go, it's based on fear and fear. Well, primarily fear of loss. Like, oh, you know, somebody might feel like, well, I'm going to, I have to spend too much money on a hotel room or a flight or this or that, which is just showing you where the person's mind is at currently. Because even back in the very beginning when we were just primarily going to Gen events, we didn't even have our own events yet. And there was times in the very beginning where it was like impossible for me to go, but I would do it anyways. Because I knew whatever my situation is, when I get back, okay, let's go. How's it going to change? if I'm staying in this mindset, if I'm staying where I'm at right now within myself, where I can't go to this, how am I changing it? What's my plan? There is no plan. That's why I'm in the situation. So you would go in order to shift outside of your normal routine, your normal pattern, and that's why a lot of people, when you go, you get sick, right? Because you're out of your routine. You're also not eating the same food you would normally eat. You're not breathing the same air you would normally breathe. You're not around the same people you would normally be around. So that's a normal thing. And always coming back, you get the upgrade. And I mean, upgrade in a real sense. Like there's one thing I notice people kind of joke around like, oh, I'm getting an upgrade because they're sick. And it's like, the sickness doesn't make you better. Because actually that's just mysticism, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm getting an upgrade. And I heard someone say, I wonder, my up. I mean, you wonder. Let me look at your writing. Let me look at the videos you've been making. Let me look at what you've been physically doing on a day-to-day basis. Okay. Unless some of that changes, why would anything change in your external world? And I mean, there can be things where there are unconscious shifts and so forth, right? But at a certain level, you're still participating in it. So if you're going into it when you get sick, like, oh, I'm getting an upgrade, and there's still a hope there, that would be the point that I would look at. It's like
it's pretty simple. An upgrade is just, it's clearing information. So where if you're pushing yourself because you're trying to, get a new habit in or install a new program of I'm no longer afraid of X, and you're pushing and you're pushing and you're pushing, then you get sick. It's just to clear up the old information. And then you're just going to feel that pushing gets a little bit easier. It's more natural.
Right.
That's been my experience.
It's your body like communicating, okay, we got a new program we're running and so forth. Right.
Cool.
So
let's get rid of the old stuff. And
right.
you just kind of yeah.
Well, to the point, the event being there, everything we're doing, you notice, and I mean, we were even getting compliments from people like staff and so forth after the event, going like, wow, like the kids are like really amazing. Like it's not even like well behaved. It's like they're having so much fun. And like, I mean, think about like what is not happening at the events. Like you're not seeing kids like screaming, fighting, parents yelling at their kids. You're not seeing like some woman drunk, like getting jealous of another woman talking to her husband. You're not seeing people getting fights over shit. Like it's a very stable environment. And so what's cool is when you're there, we're talking about, okay, we're here to change the world. We're here to become the new 1%. We're here to take more responsibility. We're here to have more stable relationships, to be better, to be the best parents, to do all these different points that are fall under the umbrella of self-perfection we talk about on the podcast. But when you go to the event, it's not just a motivation to go back and do more at home. It's going into an environment where you get to see within a large group from around the world, people, we're already done. We're already doing it.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Here's
it's like
the result of what we can create.
Like, yeah, but it happens naturally. Yeah. Why did I have to plan that?
Right. Exactly.
As someone, as part of the staff of like creating the event, I didn't have to create that. Like that was a natural part of, we just did the structure of an event.
Yeah.
But the overall resonance, the overall atmosphere of everybody just having a good time and enjoying each other. And like, you can go from one conversation to the next, like same thing we've always talked about every time we've done some big thing. Like when we went to Jess and Mitch's wedding, when we visited you
Jefferson, Orlando. Yeah.
We did the event here. Yeah. When we did the Gen event recently last year, it's like when we get together as a group, we have fun. Really cool because we did that all white party, right? And that was like the kickoff, right?
I loved those the hors d'oeuvres and the juice.
Oh wow, it was good.
At first, I tasted the juice. I'm like, "What is this?" And then I was like,
"It was so good, man."
It's like, yeah, it was so really good. It just looked like grapefruit juice or something, but it was really
exactly
good. Something else in there. But what was cool is like we went until the time, because we had it reserved from 6 to 10. Okay, and I'm thinking, there's no way people.
How long are people going to stand around and talk for 4 hours? Are you kidding me?
So we only had the hors d'oeuvres for like the first 2 hours because we're like, no one's going to want to stick around here. I mean, it's not that I actively thought no one's going to want to. It was more just like, why would
we'll be good? Yeah.
Like, why would people? People will come for a little bit. We'll have a little quick party, and it's funny because even within that, I'm really just going based on the memory of other events.
Yeah.
Like, okay, it's going to go like that. People are going to eventually kind of mill out and it's gonna be like whatever. But no one was leaving. It was like, imagine you go to a party and people want to be there. They want to stick around, and there's no drinking. Like there's no drugs. It was just like us hanging out, going from thing to thing, talking to people. And then it was like 10 o'clock. It wasn't like the lights turned off or anything, because we're just outside at like the outdoor, grill or whatever.
You know, it was cool at one point because there was like under a tent, right? And then, but people were talking around it.
It wasn't a tent. It was more like a
structure.
Yeah. It was like a building. It was like an outdoor grill that was covered.
Yeah.
Okay. Got you. Right. Yeah. I remember that. That's true. And then it started raining. Then everybody came under.
Everyone got under the thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we just started playing games.
Well, yeah. And it was cool because it was like 10:30 at night. So, right. Or it was like 10, whatever, past the time. And then, oh yeah, that's right. It started raining. So everybody started coming under the little covered area and bring chairs and just a natural. Let's just do that, and we can sit because we have to all sit under.
I think the under context is we always just know we're gonna be doing.
It was just it was like an automatic thing, and then we were like, hey, let's play a game. And then I said, Jess, what about silent football? And she was like, do you want me to explain the rules? And I'm like, of course I want you to explain the rules.
That's the only part.
Jess is like, okay, so here's how it works. And she's like, and
then everybody's like focused. Yeah, it was awesome.
Taking it very seriously, right? So that was fun. And that went on for a while. Eventually, I think I took Max upstairs. I don't even know how long. I think somebody came down, like security, and was like, I don't know why, but yeah.
Right. And like what had happened is somebody they said, oh, you got to wrap it up because you guys have till 10. And then there's a guy who said, oh, you could use it till 11. Then somebody else came and was like, no, you guys can't give it to them. We're like, hey, no problem. Like it's
like, oh, I know our party's over. We're just guests hanging out at the Barside pool. What are you talking about?
Exactly. But then
like you all leave and they're like, oh, what's this place? Hey, hang over here.
Well, what we ended up doing is we all just went to the beach.
Oh, okay, I was wondering what y'all did.
Like, a couple people went like scattered out and started talking and all that stuff, right? But then like the bulk of people, they just went to the beach and we're just doing the exact same thing except on the beach.
So, but it was just really cool because you could see like we're not, even though we're saying, hey, we're here to create a better world, we're here to implement these points, like we're already showing the evidence of it, right? And it's interesting when you look at like the religious definitions of faith. It's like the evidence of things that you can't see yet. Right? It's like when you have the feeling of the evidence of the thing. I was like, I believe in God and I know I'm going to heaven. So therefore I have the certainty and the joy of being there because I have such a strong faith. Like I know it's happening, even though I can't see it yet. Right. And that's what we have at our events. It's not a spiritual thing. It's not a mystical thing. Like my kids are actually really smart. They are really stable. Like our friendships are really strong. I mean, we can go through really difficult things and still like, because we're united in principle, we're still here and we're still friends and we're still, doesn't mean we let people get away with bullshit. Like I called somebody out at the table we were having breakfast at who was saying something retarded, but it was cool because they were like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Like they listened to what I was saying. Right. They were actually influencing somebody else in a way that wasn't best. They just didn't realize it. Right. Mm-hmm. So it was really cool. Yeah, it was just like there was no the most negative thing from my perspective. The most negative thing that occurred. Okay, it was interesting because you said it was like, remember when you were talking about it originally, you were like, it was a backdrop. What did you say? You said something about it being a smooth backdrop or something.
Yeah.
The way you phrased it, right? And it's funny because ironically, the one negative thing was the backdrop. It was made out of this vinyl stuff and it was like creased up and we only unfolded it the day of, and I tried to iron it out with like a steamer and the wrinkles would not come out. I'm like, that was the worst thing that happened.
That's so funny. I didn't like until you mentioned it. I was like, yeah, okay. Like
I'm sure no one gave a shit. That was what's so cool about it. There was no one going like, oh, look at this and this and that. Like I didn't care.
But here's,
I'm like, no one's gonna care. I don't care. Now I know. I got to figure out a better type of backdrop that you don't have to decrease.
Like I know we covered all the. I was gonna make a joke and say the boring stuff of like the meat and like the substance of all this stuff, but obviously that's the important stuff. But seriously, just the event itself, like just it's worth mentioning. It was fucking epic. Like the food, the setup, comfiest chairs
Above
I've
average
ever
of what
been
you
in.
would at our normal resort for the banquet and stuff.
Exactly. And but not even the banquet, like even the breakfast, all of it. You know, and even the chairs we got to sit in throughout the event, they're so comfortable.
Yeah.
We weren't thinking about the chairs. I wasn't thinking about that. And the little candies and the little, I was gonna say letterhead, but the notepad, the custom notepad with the technical stuff and the state, everything, man. It was like it was a really, really, really well done event.
Even
And
the DJ was cool.
DJ was awesome. She was so cool. I know you weren't around, Cameron. But she was so cool. And then gave the mic to JJ to rap.
Yeah, I wish I had been there. I had to finish up because she was like getting really tired, and it was like I don't even know what time it was at that point, but
right.
I saw the video of it. It was really cool.
Yeah, like the whole thing, and it just because of the way the hotel was laid out, it was very convenient, like in terms of going from one room to another. But the event itself was just so like smooth, and it was so smooth you didn't have to think much. I think that's like the main thing is just like you're eating breakfast and you're talking to your squad, your friend or whatever. And then it's gotta go that way, and then you go into it, and then you sit down and awesome event, and then okay, on to the next. It was just like so buttery.
And just so
if that's the standard,
that's just the beginning. Just so I want people to have the context, like that was just us putting that on based on having been to other events.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's natural learning ability. That's like you go see something and you're like, all right, what can I actually improve? And then doing the improvement and then doing the point, and it worked out really well. So that was a lot of fun. And I can tell the kids every time we go to these kind of group events, like the kids always.
We're just talking about
what
about how the kids level up in their vocabulary.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about that too, because I think Drake was texting me because I was driving and Max was in the back, I guess, talking to Drake. I heard him talking to somebody. I'm assuming he was talking to you.
Yeah.
Max's upgrade is really obvious. What did you mean by that?
No, because we were talking, and the vocabulary that he was using, like every time we hang out, he's like always just like, the next week he's saying something different. He's like more mature seeming. This time it's just like, holy shit. Like he literally sounded like he was 13 years old. Like I'm talking to him and I'm like, whoa. Like I was literally just talking to you a week ago. And a week ago, like, yeah, it was impressive. But now it's just like the way that he was like expressing himself, even just the words that he would use to sort of facilitate the conversation. Like, for instance, he would say, for instance, and then like he's giving me a for instance, and I'm like, oh shit. And then like the mannerisms that he was using and the way that he was just very mature, very conversational, and it wasn't like he was putting something on at all. And I know we've talked about that before, like he's used big words before, and he's not trying to be pretentious or anything like that, but it was just so natural the way that he was speaking, and yet so mature at the same time, that it was just blowing my mind. And even Christine was sitting next to me while we were talking, and she's just laughing at how advanced Max was speaking, and so that was really cool. And we were just doing some math the whole time. Actually, it was so funny because he was texting me at first and he said, Drake, I want to have a chat. And I was like, yeah, I'm driving right now. And he's like, me too. And I'm like, okay. And then he's asking me like, what is VII, and like, or what is the Roman numeral for 1,000? And so we're going back and forth with this. And then when we actually started talking, I said, hey, Max, can you do some division?
That was through text that he was asking?
That was through text. And then we started doing like voice chat. And then we started like actually doing FaceTime. And I was like, hey, Max, can you
So I just want to make sure that's clear for everybody. So you were texting with a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
And he's asking you math questions.
He's able to read it. He's able to text back.
Like as in Max was handing the phone to Cameron and Cameron was texting.
He was pretty quick.
How's the phone? You know, I just want to add, like last night we were laying in bed and Max goes, Cameron, do you know what CII is in Roman? I was like, what is it? He goes, 103. I was like, oh, and he goes, you know, L is 50. I was like, how did you know? And he goes, Drake told me. It's like he that like that, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like you're texting with him and then you do voice clips and then you went to a bungalow.
It was
I wanna
cool.
show you guys this real quick. Like he just made these two this morning. He was, because I was making some coffee and he was like, I want to do some drawings. Like, what can I draw? And I was like, well, I said, I got to go do the podcast this morning. I said, so why don't you draw a picture of me doing the podcast and then people watching the podcast? And he was like, thought about it for a second. And this is what he came up with. See if I can show you guys.
Wow.
This is me with my camera making the podcast. And he said, this is the Wi-Fi. And then it's going around into the other person's camera, into their video rather. And they're saying, wow.
Wow.
And,
That's you right now watching this.
and he wanted me to make another one because I was like, that was great. I was like, well, make
If you're watching or listening, say
yeah,
wow.
say wow. And then
Boom.
I said, make one of me building a
real.
table. Okay.
Building a table.
Because I'm building a table. I want to build a table for our music room to put this 3D printer on. So this is what he drew.
Cameron, you got to bring the mic way closer if you're leaning forward like that.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah. Can you see it?
Oh, there you go.
He said those are the legs on top of another table. So this is the table. He said, look how I drew it. It looks three-dimensional. And then these are the legs I'm putting together. And he said, this is me carrying a piece of plywood for the top of the table.
Nice.
Wow. That's so cool.
I want to show you guys these ones real quick. These are ones he did yesterday. Actually, here's a random one he did of some diodes we were talking about. He's like, I'm going to draw all the different types of diodes.
What does that say? What does that say? I want to learn.
Varactor, shoddy, I think. Zener and normal. Normals. And then, okay, these ones are crazy. So like yesterday, we were sitting at the table and he was drawing like algebra questions for me, right? And he goes, can you think of a math question where you can't solve it? You don't know how to solve it. And I was thinking, I was thinking in the context of stuff he knows. And I'm like, I don't know, Max, it'd be pretty hard to stump me. You know, like I'm just thinking in the context of like little algebra questions. There's probably no basic algebra question I can't solve, you know, it's in some way. And he's like, and then he goes, I forget what he says, but he brings up the Riemann hypothesis, right? And and I'm like, and then he brings this over to me, right?
What's the Riemann hypothesis?
If I told you what it is, we could look it up. Like it would be like basically gibberish.
Okay.
You could read it. Right? But he brings this to me. He goes, how about this? And I'm like, what is this? Right. And he goes, he said, I'm solving the Riemann hypothesis. Right. He says, see, there's the line and there's all the zeros on the critical line and there's no zeros not on the critical line. So no, there are no zeros of the zeta function that are not on the critical line. And I'm like, okay. And then he brings this to me. And it's just hilarious. He even wrote correct, Corecet. He wrote, Euler is not correct as a mathematician. And he said, he's telling me something is not equal to pi to the 6. It's equal to infinity to the infinity. And he said that this is some identity that holds up the Riemann hypothesis. So he said he brought the Riemann hypothesis down. This was before he proved that it was correct. I don't know. But I'm just sharing that because like he's like playing.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
so he's a normal kid. Like, you know, here's him drawing, you know, me building a desk, you know, and I love the way he drew the guy. He drew me holding the plywood. It's really cool. But then here he is like just equally just playing with, you know, some mathematical identity that I think would be 0.01% of people who studied math even know what the heck that is.
Yeah.
But it's because he watches those videos and that's actually become a part of his vocabulary, you know, and like that's how he plays. And I'm also showing it to illustrate like if you put your kid in front of G.I. Joe and Disney, what do you think is going to become a part of their vocabulary? Transformers and Ninja Turtles and all that stuff. Like, they don't like it because they're a kid. Kids just like things that are in their environment, and they're going to play with it, whatever it is. Like, it doesn't matter what it is.
It's so important. It's so important because, like,
and here's the difference. We're not forcing him to sit and do math. So it would be different if you're like, because you would say, well, but kids hate math and stuff. No, like, they don't want to sit still in a classroom for 7 hours and you force them to memorize specific things and then repeat it back. Like, that's not fun. So he has videos on his computer that we've put there that he can watch, and he'll just randomly put on a video about the Riemann hypothesis and watch it 3 or 4 times, and then come back the next day and watch it a bunch. And then that just starts to become a part of how he plays. Just like when the kids are playing, they're playing based on stuff that was put into their imagination through whatever they were impulsed by. That's what it really is. I was going to bring this up too. I was watching some podcast or something on the way home when we were driving back. Did you know that Merriam-Webster, over the past few days, week or so, it's been very recent. They changed the definition. They changed the definition of a word in the dictionary. What word do you change the definition of? What would you
Woman.
You would think so.
Man. Racism.
Let me show you. Let me
math.
Hang on.
Let me see if I can share my screen.
Hat.
I think I have that ability.
Nostril.
Here
They changed the definition of nostril.
Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
All right.
Oh.
Still the same.
Got me. Fleck.
Gotcha. Adult female person, right?
Yeah. Wow.
But I wonder.
What is a female?
How do they define female?
Okay. Okay, Cameron. Show me what's good, mate.
Of relating to or being the sex that typically has the capacity to bear young. Or produce eggs. Okay.
Oh, okay. All right.
Cool. Okay. Wait, what is this? Having a gender identity that is the opposite of male.
Okay.
This is new. They've just very see, everything is about sex. So it's really clever if you think about it. They're like, we're not going to fuck with the word woman because that'll be really obvious.
Right.
Oh, what is a woman? Now we're just going to say it's this other thing. But they're like, let's change female. It's just a gender identity that's the opposite of male. I mean, there's so much that
gender identity.
Person's internal sense of being male, female, some combination of male and female. How can you be some combination of that if you have the opposite of it, or neither male nor female? So if you're neither male nor female, you can't be a woman, according to this.
So
they're really shooting themselves in the foot. Like, they tried to be clever about it, but they're actually creating a lot of problems logically.
Yeah, because the fundamental principle, like the most fundamental truth of it, there's nothing there. It doesn't make sense.
I like to imagine that the original people who came up with the dictionary wake up in these times, they read these definitions and they're like, the fuck? Are people retarded? Is the whole society retarded? What's going on?
And here's the thing. Having an unstressed final syllable, a woman, unstressed, please. But check this out. Okay. This was just totally by accident. I was going through this and I have to scroll down by accident because I was getting this ready to show, on the podcast. Oh, look, here we go. Ironic. Totally ironic. No, but check this out. Did you know in the 14th century, female appeared in English with such spellings as female, femelle, and female? The word comes from the Latin femella, meaning young woman or girl, which in turn is based on femina, meaning woman. In English, the similarity in form and sound between the words female and male led people to use only the female spelling. The closeness also led to the belief that female comes from or is somehow related to male. Apart from the influence of male on the modern spelling of female, there's no link between the origins. So it's not like you just added the FE to male to get female is what they're saying, what they're trying to say, right? Which is interesting, right? But doesn't that sort of kind of make it seem kind of ironic?
Yeah.
It's like
they're making it, yeah.
They're making it
relative to male.
Right. So so what is a male?
Yeah, exactly. That's my next question.
That's something you get.
Of or being the sex that typically has. Okay, so that's just that sex one, right? And then it says having a gender identity that's the opposite of female.
Nope.
Everything else is boys or men, male sex. Everything else is sex. So basically male in terms of a gender identity is the opposite of female, and female is the opposite of male. So what is that?
Why are you feeding the
Why are
plants
they impulsing so
brawn?
many women? Look, here's another one, impulsing women to go in the military.
Why are you feeding the plants brawn? Well, because brawn has what plants need. Which is what?
It has electrolytes. It's what plants crave.
Okay. It's like,
what is an electrolyte?
well, what do plants
Is what plants
crave? Yeah, what do plants crave? Brawn.
He's
It's
like,
brawn, right?
you guys know what an electrolyte is? They're like,
It's what plants.
it's what plants crave.
Yeah.
But
What's
yeah.
a female? It's the gender identity that's opposite of male. Oh, a male. Okay. Well, what's a male? It's the gender identity that is opposite of a female. Yeah, but what is a female? It's the gender identity that's opposite of male.
You thought you were gonna trip me up there. I know this one.
You thought you had me.
It makes no sense. I mean, and there's the side of it which is more like the conservative side, which is like, the right, which is like go back to some, or like these words mean things, and it's not about that as much as it is just highlighting the insanity that's happening right now. And I saw this ad, I sent it to you guys. It was that Matt Walsh. I don't know if you watched it yet. It was like a video he did about the metaverse.
Oh yeah,
Did you see that one, Drake?
I did see that one. Yeah.
Wasn't there a part like, wasn't part of it like an ad? I'm trying to remember. Wasn't part of it like an advertisement actually for the metaverse? Like he was showing.
I don't remember that part.
It wasn't like just him talking about it or making stuff up. It was like there was some clips of like actual.
Oh yeah. It was a documentary. That's what it was. It was a documentary that was done 100% in the metaverse.
Okay.
Oh.
Okay, good. So, but the point was, it wasn't like an anti-metaverse thing. It was like actually stuff.
So what it was really interesting because it was like how people are, well, like I forget how it started out because it was kind of innocuous the way it started out, but then it quickly got into, this is how we're starting relationships in the metaverse. And it was like, basically everyone was some anime character, with ears and shit like that. And they're like, oh, I haven't seen Kevin, his real life body in over a year, and they're all like hanging out in the metaverse pretty much 24/7, it sounded like.
But there was also this point of like, someone in there said something to the effect of like, here you can be anything you want to be. And you can be, embraced by your community or something like that. It was just what we've been saying. Like the trans identity stuff is just leading people to break down the idea that your identity has anything to do with your physical body whatsoever. So you could just make something up, and then you can find a place online where that can be embraced, and you can just be in that. It's just a total digital, artificial, virtual reality. Yeah. And I mean, it's like people say like, oh, what's the big deal? What's the harm like of people, saying their pronouns? And it's like, do you think that's all it is? That's what it's about.
There's also a really good point that he was making, Matt Walsh was making, a couple of good points. One being the obvious point of this is being used to take advantage of young children, and it's very it's still the Wild West in the metaverse where there's a lot of sexual things going on that children should not be impulsed with. Yikes. The other point was just how if you look at your phone and like it seems like your phone is listening to you and you're getting advertisements, is because he was saying the algorithms are so good, like they've collected so much data on so many people, they're predicting when you're going to want this or that. And so like sometimes it's like when you feel like, oh, I was just thinking that, I didn't even say that out loud. It's like, yeah, because they're that fucking good at actually like influencing you. They know what you're gonna want, and they're predictively, preemptively advertising to you. You don't think that's gonna happen in the metaverse? You don't think they're gonna
ads for eczema? And I'm thinking maybe you can hear me scratching my elbows. Although it very consistently is advertising HIV drugs to me. I'm like, should I go get tested?
maybe get that checked out.
Maybe I'm just gay and Facebook knows me better than I do. Huh.
Oh,
Oh, it hears me banging dudes in the bathroom. That's like,
there's something that we were talking about at the clubhouse. Can you guys hear me? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
There's something that we were talking about at the clubhouse about how like certain celebrities, like I don't know how long ago this was, I don't remember, but I think maybe about a year ago, Kid Cudi was wearing a dress, right? And I was just remembering, like when I was like in school listening to Kid Cudi, and he was weird then, but like it was cool that he was weird, and I would have defended anything that he was doing, like because I had already decided I was a fan of his.
Yeah.
Like I would have defended anything that he was doing that was like, I don't know, did this weird thing, like he's wearing a dress, right? He's wearing a dress. I would have been like, well, I mean, you know, some people wear dresses. That's
making a statement. He's
like, I might wear a dress because it's cool, you know, like I would have defended that because it's the celebrity that I already identified with or aligned with, and like, no, I've already made this as part of my cool identity. So anything he does, it can't be not cool. So I have to go with it too, you know, and like how that, like I was just reflecting on that.
That's such a good point.
And how kids today, that's happening to them all the fucking time, but it's happening unconsciously to them because they don't realize that's what they're doing. They don't realize that they've identified with that and that they're just going to defend it. They think like, no, you're
that's
being
like that other one, the Old Country Road one.
Yeah.
He's like doing all the Satan stuff now.
Yeah, Lil Nas X.
What?
Lil Nas X, yeah. And he's like, he has like a video where he's like fucking Satan in the ass.
Yeah. It's funny.
What?
We talked about that too yesterday.
Like not even, oh, okay, you're interpreting. No, like that's what he's doing.
What's Old Country Road? What?
Yeah, that guy.
I'm just talking about the artist who made that song. I just didn't know his name.
Like Take Me Home.
No, not that one.
I'm gonna take my horse.
Yeah.
That one. Yeah.
Oh, that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
What is it called? What did I say?
You say Country Roads.
It's Old Town Road, right? I don't remember what it's called. Yeah. Okay.
No,
I don't know. And then he has like another music video where he's fucking Satan in the ass.
Yeah.
But it's funny because I talked to students about it.
Obviously.
Yeah, I understand that.
My
But how do you show that?
I fuck Satan in the ass.
I've talked to students about it, and the students are like, "Yeah, I'm not with that. That was weird. That was really fucking weird." But they're the older students who were like, "Yeah, no, he lost me when he
still has an effect." And it's like, and I think also there's a point where it gets the Christians going like, "See, Satan is trying to take our youth," and you're like, "Oh God." I think he's just trying to break the bond that kids have to their parents and the Christianity and all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's the fear parents have of like, see, this is going to lead them into Satanism. And it's like, better question. Why are your kids even listening to that music in the first place? Like, do you think my kids are listening to Little Nas X?
Oh, is it because
kids aren't even watching Sesame Street? By the way, I saw them doing some bullshit about the vaccine. Elmo got his vaccine.
Oh, that's right.
They have his dad on there, and he's like, and I don't know why his dad is black.
His dad is black.
He's like black. He's like
black.
What's the accent? It's like a. I was about to do a country accent, but it's not a country accent.
It's country black. It's country black.
Like, yeah, it's like Southern black.
Yeah, it's like definitely not from the city black.
Yeah. But anyways, he's like talking about how he had some questions at first, but. You know,
that's the accent.
He did the best thing he could for his son. And the doctor, whatever. It's okay to ask questions. If somebody was saying like, yeah, the conclusion you come to is the correct conclusion based on what the CDC wants you to say.
Right.
Yeah, it's fucked up. They're impulsing the kids under 5 years old now to want to get the vaccine because Elmo got it. And it's like, that's what it was, Dark Horse podcast. They were like, Elmo can't get COVID. He's a Muppet.
Elmo can't also get the vaccine.
Elmo needs a COVID vaccine. Elmo was to protect grandma. And you're like, fuck,
And
Muppets
they're
live
like,
forever. He's
also Elmo's.
how long
40
has he
years
been
old.
the age he is?
Yeah, exactly.
And now, so, like, okay, the normal rules of time don't apply to Elmo, but COVID, he can get COVID, right? Okay. You have a dude's hand up your ass, Elmo. I don't know if you realize this. Maybe it's just a perpetual COVID test.
Elmo has sexual preferences
Perpetual
too.
COVID.
Yeah. What else? I mean, fuck. It's just everything is just getting crazier and crazier. And it's not like surprising at all. It's just the way it's going to be. It's the way it's going to be because the system is spiraling out of control. So you have, on the one hand, you see the culture is Western culture is spiraling out of control. And I even saw recently, I can't remember what it was, but there was something I was looking at where they're now putting all the feminism and stuff into Muslim culture, like and they're starting with the countries that are like more corporate controlled, if that makes sense. You know, like Qatar, Saudi Arabia, like some of these ones that are more like, I guess just have more money.
Yeah.
So it's coming in through the, because think about all the corporations that want to be over there. So it's like I just see this point where it's like they're kind of using that, introduce all of these into, it won't be long before Saudi Arabia, they'll have on their TV, like the trans story of the trans, Muslim boy who became a Muslim girl and he's like wearing a hijab. Is that how it works though, actually? If you become trans in Saudi Arabia, do you wear a hijab? If you're like a trans woman?
I feel like you just get.
I just felt so uncomfortable as a male in this
Assassinated.
society that I wanted to become. I realized I was a woman. I really belong in a hijab.
That'd be so ridiculous. Yeah, no, I think they just get beheaded or stoned.
They chop your dick off. They're like, "Thank you. That's what I wanted. That's what I wanted." Yeah, it's quite a contrast. But and I'm seeing people talk more and more about all these points. Like even I was listening to a lot of Gavin McInnes on the drive back, and he was talking about ESG and all the stuff they're doing on the corporate side, to put everyone in everything compliance. What's going on in Canada? They're passing some. I'm trying to remember what the bill was. They're passing something new there. That's another speech law or something crazy. They did something about online censorship recently, and so they're just pushing all of these points because it's like, number one, the current elite want to bring the population down, but then they also want the population that's here or that will be here to be in control. And so everything is being put into systems algorithmically to make it so you can only say certain things. And if you say certain things or do certain things, you're automatically kicked out of the system. So people will fall in line just because they're afraid, not even because they agree. They're just afraid of being ostracized. In fact, I was watching something they were talking about. I think it was Jim Brewer. He was talking about how he flew recently. And he was like, they do this little speech at the beginning about, you can wear your mask if you choose to. And if you see somebody else wearing a mask, like just let them do that. Maybe they have a song. They did this whole thing, right? And he's like, but then when it came to it, out of the whole flight, like 3 people wore their mask, right? Because I haven't flown recently, so I don't know. But he was like, 3 people wore their mask, right? And he was like, so when they're given a choice, no one wants to do it, even though we're still being told this new one is more contagious and you still got to get it and all this stuff, right? And like they just came out with Joe Biden got COVID, right? He's got it now, right? And I saw it's funny. They were like, how you use your, they're saying on Timcast, right? They're like, how you lose your sense of smell, right?
Oh yeah.
Like now I won't be able to sniff kids.
Poor
Poor guy.
One last sniff
really
before
bad,
my sense of smell goes.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, what else can I say? It's like there's a certain point where you can just constantly be outraged at like, can you believe they do this now and doing this in the schools and all that? And it's like, what do you expect? It's just going to get worse. And I remember when I started studying Destiny, I started listening to Bernard and Destiny back in 2008. This was right before Obama got elected. Okay. And just to give you context, and back then he was talking about like the system is collapsing, right? And then we had the whole 2008, 2009 collapse, right? Whatever it was, right after Obama got elected, right? And he said the system's collapsing. They're running out of money. They don't know how to maintain the system. And two things are going to happen. One, the system is going to try to control more and create a point where you just sit at home all day and everything you do, your movement, your speech, everything is controlled. You have no more choice. And two, people are just going to keep going crazier and crazier because the mind itself and all the emotions and all these points are just going to compound more and more and more and more until people can't take it. And so we're seeing right now with all this transgender stuff is the outlet valve for all of that. See what I'm saying? It's just the way people are trying to cope with the point. Actually, I was looking at something else with Jordan Peterson. He was interviewing this woman who is, I think she's written a book or something. She's like she's a journalist actually. She's talking about the whole trans stuff. And she was saying how she interviewed like 200 different people and like doctors, all kinds of people. And she kept asking like, what's the word for this situation? They kept telling her epidemic. So she called it like an epidemic or something, right? And it was interesting because she made this point. She said, if you go back in the history of gender dysphoria, trans ideology, trans identification and so forth, it was obviously an extremely small minority of people, but it was also predominantly male and boys.
Oh.
And she said, now it's predominantly like post-adolescent, adolescent, teenage girls who have no history of trans in their. So it's like very clearly like a teenage girl phase, fad thing that's occurring. And, like they're on social media. There's all this shit going on. Like all the things that are really challenging about being a teenage girl are being amplified by social media and just everything going on. And then this is the way to like, in a certain way, cope psychologically, but also to kind of be a part of a movement, have an identity as a part of a group and so forth. It fits a lot of boxes. And then they were also talking about the interesting thing about it is when they go to the psychologists, when they go to the doctors about it, they have to do what's called gender affirming care. Have you guys you keep hearing this term? Have y'all heard this term?
Gender affirming.
Gender affirming or gender affirmative care. Okay.
Not the care part.
Well, but it's like when you go to a doctor, they call it gender affirmative care. Okay. So approach is gender affirmative. It seems like, I mean, what's the big deal, right? And this is also being pushed by our Admiral Rachel Levine, our beautiful Assistant Secretary of Health, who doesn't at all look like a man and is not a man and never was a man. He's a beautiful female admiral.
She also does not at all look like a walrus and never was a walrus.
Was never a walrus.
Did not have her tusks removed.
You can look up Rachel Levine if you want, right? Transgender, Assistant Secretary of Health, and is saying that the standard of care now needs to be gender affirming care, right? And so what that means is,
I just want to be I just want to be fair and say that I do gender affirming here in my household. I affirm that Christine is a woman every day.
What? So that's an adult female person?
She's an adult
female. No. What definition of female are you using?
Yeah, exactly.
We're talking
all of them. All of the definitions.
Is it 1A or 1B? Let me see here.
1A I'm using. I think she falls under 1B as well, because she would be the opposite of male.
There's a 1A and a 1A1. There's a 1B. 1B is the opposite of male. But I mean, let me ask you a question. How do you know she's not a male?
How do I know she's not a male?
Yeah.
Because she identifies as female.
Right, but what is a female?
It's the opposite of a male.
How do you know you're not a male? I'm not a male because I'm a female. Well, what is a female? It's not a male. Yeah. Okay, but let's just say you're a male. What is that? It's the opposite of female. Okay, so which one are you? How do you know which one you are? It makes no fucking sense. So the gender affirming care is literally that insane. Imagine you go to the psychologist, okay? And I did this when I was in college. I went to a psychiatrist and I just told him, hey, I'm having trouble studying, having trouble staying focused at school, and it just makes it hard for me to pass my classes because I can't study and prepare for my tests.
And he gave you weed.
This was a like literal 15-minute conversation. And I left there with a prescription for Adderall.
Wow.
Like that was it. First time seeing the guy. That was it. So like that I literally told him what the diagnosis. I mean, I didn't say I have ADHD. I think I might even say maybe I have ADHD or something like that. But it was like he just needed to hear certain things and be like, all right, cool. Yeah. There was no tests. Like, can you imagine if he actually had spent time and got to know me? He'd be like, you don't have fucking ADHD. Like,
you just hate.
like he didn't even know anything about my history. He didn't know like I went to the Air Force Academy previously. Like I had all these things. Like, anyways, so that's what they're doing now with these kids. They go to the doctor and they're like, I feel like a girl or whatever, or they say certain things and they're like, yep, you probably are. You are a girl. They're not allowed to question them. They're not allowed to be like, well, maybe, like let's get to know each other, and like let me get to know you so I can see what's going on. Like, and it's not even about they would say, yeah, they should say like maybe it's this or that, but like they should be trying to figure out like what's going on psychologically within the person. They're not. Like, is it possible the person like the child is just saying they're a girl because they want certain privileges that their parent is saying only the other gender can have, and so from their perspective they're like, I have to be this. I mean, just an example.
Yeah.
But the psychologist is not allowed to even probe. They have to affirm the gender. So basically, you go to the doctor and they're supposed to affirm the diagnosis that you have come up with.
Wow.
It's like if you watched an ad on TV for a certain medication. They're like, if you ever get nervous at night, you might have, nighttime nervousness disorder or something, and you should ask your doctor about this prescription. So you go to the doctor, like, hey, sometimes I get nervous at night. And they're like, oh, okay, yeah. And they're like, yeah, I think I have this issue. And they're like, yep, you do, because you said so.
Right.
You're not allowed to be like, okay, well, when do you get nervous? Like, oh, you work next to when you work at a building where when you come out, there's like a gang headquarters that stands outside with like fucking weapons on their side, like in full exposure, and like your car is like under a streetlight that's like blinking in dark, like maybe that's why you're getting nervous. You know what I mean? Like there's some cause to it.
Just give me the drugs.
Just give me the fucking drugs. I want to situation. I still want to walk past this gang every night, but I just don't want to be nervous about it. That's what it is.
Yeah.
So it's not going to solve the problem. And then what happens is that leads them to, okay, gender affirming care. It's like the track to getting eventually the surgeries and the hormone blockers, because that's a part of the gender affirming care. So you're not allowed to support the person. Now, fast forward that to, we live in a world where your child is being impulsed by things, and you as a parent have to affirm the gender. Because there are cases where this is happening. It's like, it's not like all the time. It's not the rule of thumb right now, but it's happening some places where, there was a case recently, not too long ago rather, where the father lost custody of the son, and the mother was trying to put him on hormone blockers, and the dad wouldn't affirm the child's gender. And so the doctor or the judge was like forcing the father to like comply with what the mother was wanting. It wasn't even the biological mother. It was in Dallas, I think, in Texas. So stuff like that is happening.
But what's interesting is like what you were saying before. Basically, these people are being influenced in a way where it's fucking up their minds, and then they're not allowed to get help from the people that are in a position to help them. That's basically it. Like and the worst part about it is that this society is going along with it. Like you're not allowed to get help from,
like, imagine the average person like in the 50s. What did they care about?
Heroin. Oh.
No.
I read a book. That's what they were doing. They were doing a lot of heroin in this book. And I think it was like in the just prior to the 50s, I guess it would have been. Like it was based on some guy who made heroin really popular in that time. But anyway,
I guess from his perspective, everybody wanted heroin because that's the only people he interacted with.
Right.
Everybody wants heroin. It's like, dude, you work at a heroin store. Like,
yeah.
Everybody I see wants heroin. Like,
and so he was going to different doctors. It was interesting because he would go to different doctors and just ask them for like, hey, I'm having these symptoms, and they would prescribe him like either heroin or what's the other one that's like really
This was like the precursor to gender affirmative care.
exactly. And then eventually they made it illegal to prescribe these things like just on a whim. But yeah, that's probably not going to happen
Now
here.
they have to prescribe them on a piece of paper. So anyways, back then, like, what do people care about? They like, I'm gonna go get a job in a factory or go to college. Maybe, I don't know, in the 50s people were thinking about college, but it was get a career or a job that you're going to have probably your whole life, and that's going to allow you to pay for a home and certain things, right? So my point is, when children are growing up in that environment, they see that as the normal, as the standard of like, it gives their life meaning and purpose. And I'm not saying we should go back to that, but at the time, that's where the human mind was at, as that was considered a valid purpose. And I know it didn't work for everybody, so that's why I'm not saying we should go back to it. But the point is, on average, the average person, they could see some sort of meaning that could fit into their life at that point. And I'm talking about a very small percentage of people, because I'm just talking about, America or something.
World,
Just giving an example, right? But there wasn't the same level of crazy unrest that you see now, right? I mean, I guess except for Black people, but okay. Anyways, it's just an example. So, but their mind could.
Actually, you're talking about the 50s. That was probably
like the best time.
Best times for Black people in the history of the United States.
They're like, I see my dad every day. Now it's just like, and I mean, think about this. Like, now you just got a bunch of weird autistic Black kids with no fathers, and they're all either gay or trans or really into anime. That's like the average Black kid now. Can we just go back to when it was like basketball and rap? Now it's like you can't even turn on the rap without the Satan getting fucked in the ass. It's like, what the hell, man? No, but my point is, like, children growing up, there was like a sense of you have a certain thing you're going to fit into, right? Not saying it was best, it's just that it supported a certain level of stability. But now a child growing up, it's not that they're thinking about this consciously. It's just that imagine in your mind, there's a spot that says like my purpose in life, the ultimate thing I'm heading towards. There's just nothing there filling that spot. So it's like this vacuum that's just like gets filled in with crazy shit.
Yeah.
And like it's just of instability. Like if you're a kid today growing up and you're in high school, like what are you thinking what are you gonna do for a living? Survive. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I'm gonna go be a CEO, and then you're thinking like, well, not if you're a man. You in the back of your mind, you have to be seeing all of this, going like, yeah, that's not a viable point. Plus I'd have to either suck China's dick if I want to go be like an executive for the NBA, or, suck my boss's dick, I guess, who's actually a woman, just to get a raise. I don't even know what you're supposed to do. But like, if you don't go along with every fucking party line, you're not going to be able to do it. So all of that has to, at a certain level, be like subconsciously, unconsciously going into people. Like there's a feeling of like, there is no actual meaning and purpose to being here. And so there's no just basic stability. They have no purpose. They have no sense of meaning. We're searching identity. Do you know what I mean? Like, why don't you derive your identity from your purpose? People don't have a purpose. So now they're looking for identity as a means in itself. And their identity, they don't even realize, is totally given to them by other people.
Yeah.
It's like, imagine if every child, I mean, of course it's too late at this point, but I'm just giving an example. Like every teenager was shown and understood like Century of the Self. They would get like, oh, fuck. Like the Rockefellers literally like brainwashed women to leave the home, because that would mean more tax money for them. They would get the kids. They could brainwash the kids. There's nothing about a person's identity that's like shaped by, that's coming from who they are within themselves, other than, are they going to operate based on principle or not? That's the only point. And that's obviously not going to come automatically, because no one was educated to do that ever.
Yeah.
Now I'm getting ads for diabetes. Well, this is on someone else's computer.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Actually,
I was like,
based
why?
on whose it is.
So have you been eating a lot of key lime pie?
Yeah. That key lime pie was amazing, by the way.
Yeah, I'm just seeing that point of like everyone, it seems like everyone's being impulsed with this is the way that things are going to go, and anyone who can see better or anyone who has the ability to stop it or help is being told, keep your hands up, just keep your hands up, hands off, don't touch anything, don't touch anything, just let it go. And that's subconsciously what everyone has agreed to, or unconsciously what everyone has agreed to within our society, is just that point of like, just let it ride. Like you're not supposed to tell somebody they can't be whatever gender they want. You're not supposed to tell people that the real problem that we're having is we're all slaves. Like that's that's slavery right now, that you have to go to work for just to survive. You can't say that, because then you'll offend somebody else, and you're not supposed to offend anyone. That's like the biggest crime that you could do, is offend somebody. So don't do that. It's basically everyone's,
It's not even actual offense.
yeah,
It's if a person claims to be offended.
yeah,
And as long as they claim to be offended based on what is the current definition of acceptable thought
right,
pattern, like the acceptable program.
right,
And when you're in 1984, you learn about double think,
yeah,
double speak, and like that's literally what it is, because logic is not the answer here. And when I say that, I mean I don't mean we shouldn't be logical, but I mean trying to argue with logic with people who are not don't think logically. They're not applying. If you're using double think, you're not applying logic.
right,
Because you can't say like 1+1 is 2, but 1+1 is also 3, or it's whatever I want. And that's what people are saying. Like it's whatever I want it to be.
right.
Yeah, like Avery was telling me he spent some time with somebody not too long ago. He
Hmm.
was saying that they were like super on the fucking like, the Kool-Aid, triple vax, probably triple masked, triple gendered. I don't even know. And they were trying to argue with him that reality is subjective. And they said, see those mountains? Because they're out, they're in British Columbia. And he's like, see those mountains? He's like, yeah, they don't exist. He's like, what are you talking about? Of course they exist. They're right there. She's like, no, think about it. For people over on the East Coast, because they're on the West Coast of Canada, he's like, they don't exist. Not in their reality.
That's not how reality works.
So let's talk about
Wait,
climate change.
So you
Let's
bring
apply
up
that same logic to
the
climate change.
Let's talk about climate change.
Let's remove the mountains. That's not going to affect the wind patterns. It's not going to affect the way. Did you know? I heard this recently. All the dust that blows from Africa, like it's like tons and tons and tons of dust that blows, like every year thing, right? It goes into the sea and remineralizes the sea.
Yeah,
Like you'd be like, oh, we gotta stop all this fucking dust, man. It's like,
Wow.
actually, that would be a disaster.
Wow. That's cool.
one thing that I was seeing recently, do you remember when Project Veritas was like recording all the CNN executives and just like them talking about how they're making stories against Trump because that's what's and then making stories on COVID, and then like they were also saying the next story that we're going to do, the next big push is going to be climate change. And like right now, that's all their stories are about: heat waves. Oh, how climate change is the biggest, most imminent threat that we face as a nation today is climate change. The head of the CIA is saying that most imminent threat is climate change, which is crazy. But
If I was a kid today, I'd be like, I want to grow up and be a climate spy. I want to work for the CIA. I want to spy on all the climate.
ooh,
I'm just gonna be looking with my binoculars right into the sun, like I see you. I see you burning everybody with your climate.
we gotta stop the sun.
But do you know what I mean? Like we could sit here and say logically all these things don't make sense all day long. It doesn't matter, because the person who is buying into it because they were programmed through their environment when they were children with all kinds of retarded shit.
Yeah.
It's like trying to put Mac software on a Windows computer. It's like, it's not designed to fit into that. It's not designed to process that. You have to restructure the way that person processes information.
Yeah. And going back to what you were saying earlier, as far as like the way that Max is playing with the different diodes, with the Riemann's theory, like all those things, where most kids, what they're getting is literally just a bunch of bullshit being filled in their heads, and that's what they have to play with. Essentially, it's like, if as a parent, like it just wouldn't make sense if you knew whatever you put in there is what's going to be the basis of who that person is for the rest of their lives. It's almost like, I don't know, it's hard for me to fathom this, but I know this is the case. But it's as if parents don't realize that they're shaping their child.
You know how people say, like, you see these ads, they're like, pit bulls are actually really kind animals. They have a bad rap. Like, it's just people mistreat them. It's like,
yeah.
But humans don't work that way. We're just come in the world. We've got a gender identity. We've got opinions.
Yeah, exactly. You got this whole personality, all this stuff, right? Like, that's what needs to be got across to more people, more parents.
It's not going to come. It's never. I want everyone to be really clear. It's never going to come by preaching to the masses.
No,
it's not going to happen.
Yes.
Like, it's going to happen from one-on-one, a person taking on the responsibility, let's say as an adult, to really start going back through and looking at, okay, where am I being a total retard? And you just, the perfect start, I saw this quote from Brewer. I can't remember the exact point, but the paraphrasing is like, if you really want to understand yourself, start by looking at the nature of your relationships. So the relationships that you form with things, it could be the relationships that you form with another person. It could be your relationship to food. It could be your relationship to, if you have a business or a job. Like, do you just go to your job and show up and you just kind of like half-ass it until you get to go home? Like, that's showing you something about who you are. And I'm not saying you need to go there and give it your 100%, because I mean, having a job is kind of fucked. Although I would rather people have jobs and be able to afford food than to starve. And for the current education level, currently right now, people need to have jobs. So I'm not like, I understand the way the system works. Not everybody, based on their current education level, is going to be able to step out of that right away. That's why we're always looking for those who are like, okay, I see the possibility. I want to take responsibility for this, because this is not something what we do where you just be like, all right, I'm here now. It's not like, okay, now give me my job. It's like, it's not a fucking job. Like, you're going to have to walk a process and dismantle and like understand, like, how did I come to create myself as who I am, even though you weren't conscious of the whole thing. Right. And the best way to do that is to like start looking at who are you in real time right now in all of your relationships. When you go into points, how do you behave? Like, and if we're going to stand up and change the system, start looking at that. Like, if I were to suddenly be placed right now in charge of the entire world system based on who I am right now, not projected of, I think I'm amazing and I would do this. Like, if you were self-honest with how you actually behave and what you actually do and participate in on a daily basis and how you interact in the relationships you're in, just apply that like a computer would think of it objectively to you being in the situation of being in the top 1%. Because everyone likes the current percent and go, it's all Justin Trudeau, it's Joe Biden, it's all this. And it's like, okay, let me make you the president today. Like, and you yell at your kids. Like, one thing Katie was pointing out, a couple things. One, stop saying tribe. I don't think you guys say it, but can we just stop with the saying fucking my tribe? I heard someone say it the other day, like, I found my tribe.
I'm gonna start saying it now.
Katie goes, what is it? Fucking tribal warfare?
My tribe.
Like, do you live in a fucking tribe in Africa? Like,
my tribe.
Like, like even like what we do, it's like, I found my tribe. I'm like, do you understand the meaning of the word tribe? It's like you're saying you're separating yourself out from other people. There's different tribes. Like, like there's the techno-tutor tribe, and then there's like the spirituality tribe. And it's like, it's not a fucking tribe. Like, it's a culture as a way of life that's best for everybody, and everyone has to get on board. Understanding, like, it's the only fucking way. always considering once for all, these are principles. It's not a, I just really resonate with these and they just feel really good to me personally. And that's really what it's about. And everyone has their own deal and like their own tribe and their own vibe and their own, feelings about things. It's like, yeah, that's what's fucking everything up. That doesn't mean I'm going to tell you what fucking clothes that you need to, like what color of shirt to wear. Who gives a shit? Do you know what I mean? But
listen, Cam, you're fucking up my whole wardrobe here.
right.
I had a whole Pocahontas fucking top all picked out.
My
I was
tribe.
going with the tribe theme. Come on, man.
But the tribalists, they would be like, oh, but you can't wear a Nazi shirt. Come on. You can't wear a fucking KK Confederate flag. Like, so they do want to fucking dictate. It's not about what anything goes. So I'm just saying, like, the whole tribe thing, and I understand why people use it, and it's a very like popular phrase right now. People are like, oh, I found my tribe. So I'm just kind of being silly about it. But seriously, really look into that, the phrasing of that, and understand that's not what we're doing. This is not we've got our tribe. People have their own deal. It's like, no, this is everybody. That doesn't mean everybody's going to take the responsibility of building a techno-tutor business and helping educate everybody. But the principles, the process of going back through your vocabulary and redefining every word into what's best. Because if you look at how words are being redefined now, they're being redefined into nonsense. Imagine actually going back and checking each word. Like a perfect word would be like the word pride, right? What is the best for all definition of the word pride? Wouldn't it be like to actually appreciate what you're able to accomplish when you put in effort and you put in self-discipline based on considering what's best for everybody and reflecting on that and being like, cool, I am appreciative, and you appreciate someone else doing it. You can have a pride in someone else doing it. Wouldn't that be the best way to look at it? Versus I'm proud of being black and sassy or some shit. And you're like, I'm proud of being Western European thing. It's like, you didn't invent shit. You know what I mean? You're being proud of an identity.
Yeah.
That's not real.
Yeah.
That's like being proud of the fucking shoes you have. It's like, no, you participated in a system, you got money, you bought the shoes. The same fucking system that makes other people not even able to afford shoes. Imagine like going to a tribe in Africa, see someone else's tribe, right? And you're like looking at these kids and like, they're like, they can't even they have the terrible nutrition or something, right? And like, they're like malnourished. And you're like looking at their feet going like, fucking broke ass. Can't even afford any fucking slides. Fucking loser. You know what I mean? Like, why would you be proud about that?
Yeah. And so, what are some of the other spells that Katie had to point out?
Oh, another one was
that was good though.
Point.
I don't even think that was the first one you're gonna say.
No, what was the other thing? There was something else that was oh yeah. Because we were driving back, right? And we were staying at different resorts on the way back, obviously traveling. And so we're like the last place we stayed at was a Four Diamond. It's a nice place, right? I'm in Alabama. And so we're with people who presumably are relatively wealthy, upper middle class at least, right? Because you're gonna stay at a hotel like that if you're not. And people are so mean to their kids. And Katie keeps using this word, like they're treating them like dogs. They're probably friendlier with their dogs, like there was this one point we were trying to walk through this door. It wasn't even we were just like going towards the doorway. And there was like the father with a stroller. And then there was like an older kid who was probably around Max's age, kind of standing sort of in the doorway. He like looks, get out of the doorway. I told you, get out of the doorway. What are you doing? Get over there. And it's like the kid's like, no, okay, like I'm like, fuck, man.
Mm-hmm.
And her point was, she was talking about this morning. She's like, why do you think these people are growing up so fucking docile? Because even that guy is fucking docile. He'll probably put on the mask. He'll probably take the vax. Or he won't stand up for it really. Yeah. And like posting about it online or even making a podcast about it isn't really fucking standing up because you're not solving the problem. And yeah, we were just talking about that point of like how people really just treat their children like terribly. And I mean, I yelled at my daughter one time and then I felt like shit for like a week about it. I mean, not literally a week. Like I forgave myself. I looked at the point. I did my just because I was hated because she didn't want to get in bed, you know, and she was like being a little bit participating in a manipulation point, but it's like, why am I getting frustrated about this? So it's like one time out of like 3 years of life, I'm like getting frustrated, and I'm like, and I'm just sharing that. It's like, to me, it's like that was the worst thing I could ever do. I know there's worse things, but I mean, it's like not acceptable.
Well, it's just, yeah. And the point there is the standard that you hold yourself to. Like at the end of the day, to an individual, like I'm not saying this is best, but it's like, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to do any of this. You don't have to do, you can do whatever the fuck you want. But just know that every time you complain, it's going to result in consequences, right? Where every dimension of that is going to be everywhere where you didn't hold yourself to the highest standard. And I'll say everywhere where I don't hold myself to the highest standard, I know is going to come through in my relationship, in my children, in my life, in
higher
everything.
gas prices.
Right.
Like, it's hard to connect those dots.
This is the second, third, fourth, fifth, 10th order of consequences where, like, what the fuck are the gas? Are we going to have gas in 5 years? You know what I mean? Like 5 years from now, everything's going to be like this because of what we've collectively accepted, right? It's going to be like this or like this. It's going to be whatever it is. It's going to be a result of what we've all like cumulatively accepted over the last.
On in Sri Lanka?
What's going on?
They fucking overthrew their government. And in the Netherlands, they're protesting because of the gas, or they're shutting down like.
Isn't it like like you need, people are dying because, fuck.
Which one are you talking about?
Maybe it's Sri Lanka. And somebody said this about Netherlands too, where it's like, oh man.
No, I could be wrong about the Sri Lanka, the details of it, but it's similar to the Netherlands, I believe, where it's like the government was saying we're gonna I can't remember if it's about energy or if it's about crops in the Sri Lanka. I think it's about crops. They're like, we're not going to use like certain pesticides. I know that's what's going on in the Netherlands. I think it's a similar thing in Sri Lanka. I can't remember, but it's like the government's basically like, you know, we're going to transition from this particular thing to this particular thing.
What I overheard is like the way they produce something is like, or they agreed to like not use this energy. Like it's something to do with energy. They agreed to not use this anymore to create stuff. And now the main way that they were using to produce, again, I just overheard it. But because they signed some agreement that they weren't going to use X.
Here's what I know. In the Netherlands, it's like they're not allowed to use ammonia, or they have too much ammonia and nitrogen.
To the government, they're using the climate change thing, and the Sri Lanka thing had something to do with about like exports or something, or importing or something. Anyways, they changed the rules, which then makes it so like their whole fucking food industry is like collapsing. I just remember the details at the moment. There's so many of these things going on. And then the
people are like dying, right?
Right. Because it's like, so I'm reading this book right now called Caves of Steel. And it's another book by Isaac Asimov. And it's in the robot series of things that he wrote. And it's really, really, really good. I recommend it for anybody. It's super good. And basically there's two sides of society. There's the Earth society, and then there's what they call the spacers. And basically at a certain point in history, people went from the Earth and they colonized like the outer planets in space. But those were more like, it's a different environment out there. And so Earth society developed differently than the other societies. And out in the other outer societies, it's like people live under their own, they have like domes. And it's almost like everyone has like property and like land and like their own thing. And you can go in between and so forth. But it's more like, kind of more like rural from that perspective, although their technology is like super fucking advanced. No one ever gets sick because like they didn't have any like foreign bacteria or anything to face like when they went out to these planets and so forth. But on the Earth civilization, it's like there's gigantic fucking domes that are like an entire city, but they use the word, they call cities in the past with a little c, and they call the current cities a capital C. Like they're like 10 million people each, and it's one gigantic building under one dome, and you never see the sky. and all the air is recirculated. It's like when you're outside, you're still inside. This is on the earth. And there's like these giant cities, like New York is one of them, Shanghai, and so the entire population lives in these gigantic cities under these domes. And this guy was making this point about how in the book, like how precarious the situation in the cities are. And he was saying that, in the past, like this is like thousands of years in the past, like normal, what we would call normal society, like our current life, something that would happen in the economy, if something shut down, it's like the effect of it. People would have enough food and stuff like in the cities or whatever to live for like a week or two. You know what I mean? But then as things became more complex and more interdependent, it'd be like you couldn't even live more than a day if something shut down. So like if supplies didn't get from one place to the next, it would, to the point where in the city, that these ones that exist in this book, if one particular industry stops or has a hiccup, literally people could survive in an hour. Like the whole city would shut down because they're doing circulated air, like the energy, everything was so interconnected. So it's become so crazy, so interconnected and so interdependent and so precarious that like literally nothing can stop functioning even for a second. And so what happens is the population continues to grow under these domes, and the standard of living keeps going down and down and down and down and down. And like it's described so well. Like the main character, he is a police officer and he has a certain rating, or so it's called a classification. He has a certain classification, and you can be declassified at any moment. Like his father was a scientist at a nuclear lab, or like what do you call it? Not nuclear lab, power plant. And there was an accident, and he got blamed for it. And it's not clear in the book whether he was to blame actually or not, but he got declassified, and so him and his whole family got sent to live in like the basically like labor camps. Like you have no privilege. Now he had to work his way back up, so he's an adult. He's a cop. He's got a C5 classification, and so his means he has his own house, his own apartment, and they have a wash basin, like a sink. And not only do they have a sink, but it's activated, which means they can actually turn the water on. So he can shave in his own sink. And when he goes to the bathroom, it's not communal showers. He has his own stall that he can go into, and it's called a personal. And he's like, and so he's like in constant sort of anxiety that like if he does anything wrong, he's going to lose that privilege, and he has to go back to washing at the community showers and so forth, right? And like he has the privileges of eating at home 3 meals a week, versus you have to go to these big kitchens where it's like they give you
3 meals a week, or
3 meals a week. He can actually eat at home, and like even eating like meat is like insane. Like everything they eat is yeast. It's like some kind of yeast that they formed into some like flavor or something else or whatever, right? So it's just interesting because you're like, wow, he could see even back then like the ultimate consequence of continuing to cram people together and create more structure and more rules. And you could see just that the whole point about the book is that there's a growing segment of that society who's just like wants to return to the soil, wants to return to like real nature and things like that. And like they feel like the robots are trying to make it so that they'll never be able to get out.
Hey, real quick, I have an agreement with Maylat just because she's like feeling pretty sick, that I would hop off at the 45-minute.
Oh, that's fine. I got to go at 11 anyways. Do you want to wrap it up now? You can go if you want to.
I would keep going. This story is really good. If
I can now wrap it up. It's fine.
Okay, cool. All right, but I'll check it. I'll see you guys.
Yeah, okay, see you.
Yeah.
But yeah, but the point is, it's like even in that book, like you would think like it's sort of like a utopian sort of thing because no one ever goes without, but they still have to have all these structures of like declassification and different levels of society and like privileges and not having privileges. And you can see that with our world. Like it's not like there is no sign whatsoever that on the current trajectory of our world, it's heading towards utopia.
No.
Even though that's what all these people are claiming. It's about equality and all this stuff. Like, so apparently their aims are like, even though they're not saying actually what's best for all, they're never saying what's best for everybody.
No.
Because then they can't say, but not men or white people or women or whatever underprivileged class they want to create.
Yeah.
It has to be, it's about equity, equality. It's all these like buzzwords that don't actually mean anything. Just like the word female doesn't mean anything anymore. It's like interesting because when you read Ayn Rand, she says the definition, not the definition, but like one sign of insanity is when you can't say something is something and is not something else.
Yeah.
like she says A is A and A is not A or whatever she says. There's A and not A. It's like an Aristotelian logic. There's this and there's that.
Yeah.
And our society is moving towards a point. It's been there for a while, but it's like moving more and more to a point where it's just open acceptance of no, A can be A or not A or whatever. It's whatever you want.
Right.
How do you run a nuclear power plant based on that? How do you run an electrical station based on that kind of logic? You can't.
Yeah.
And the problem with people say, well, but you can just separate it out. There's like psychology and human identity, and then there's that kind of stuff. But the problem is, where are children being taught the actual logic?
Right.
Because they're just sitting at home watching TV, playing apps, being entertained, and in their entertainment is heavily impulsing them with the other kind of logic, which is the anything goes.
Yeah.
And everything is about that. And so like corporations, businesses, education systems are being filled up just with constant, complete focus only on, let's talk about how everything is not everything and reality is subjective and everyone can be whatever they want and all that. And there's no discussion anymore. And so now you have it creeping into the hard sciences. You know what I mean? Like into mathematics, physics, and so forth. So and it's going to be in technology where.
Well, you already saw it go into medicine full force for the last 2 years.
Right. And it's not even, it's fascinating because they're saying like, trust your doctor, you should talk to your doctor, trust the scientists, trust doctors and so forth. But then you go to the doctors and now they're being told you'll lose your license if you don't just say, yes, you have what you have.
Exactly.
Because it's like before you needed the doctor as the salesperson. I just realized what it is. You needed the doctor as a salesperson. So it's like, okay, this person's coming in, they have these symptoms. I need the doctor to sell them on this drug.
Yeah.
I don't need that anymore.
Right.
They actually just need the person to be so entertained and impulsed by the media, social media. Like we've got the algorithms. We've already predicted it. We know how to impulse you. We know how to trigger you. We know how to get all the emotions right. We don't need the fucking doctor as a salesperson. We just need the doctor to be there with the lab coat so you feel like, oh, it's like an actual medical scientific thing.
Yeah.
And maybe they'll do away with that eventually. Like you could just self-diagnose based on, and agreeing to some liability or something.
100%. I think that, well, I mean, that's something that on the Dark Horse podcast, they talked about like a year ago, where they talked about specifically how before a doctor used to be someone who would go into your home and they'd sniff the air and go, oh, you're having this ailment because you've got mold in your air or you've got this or whatever. Like they could like put that together because they're actually doing some work. And now it's just
that would probably be considered like some kind of like racist or something. You know what I mean? Like, classist or something like, oh, I have a right to mold or something.
Because you sniffed the you use a lot of curry in this household. That's racist. That doctor lost his job.
Saying that people shouldn't have mold is insensitive to cultures.
That's it. It's good.
There'd be a way to find it. Yeah, okay, but continue with that. You're saying so like the doctor would actually go in and like look at, okay, what's the actual problem?
Yeah, they make an assessment, right? And then today, like, I mean, for the last decade even, it's just been fill in these things. Oh, you have these symptoms, that symptom, that. Okay, well, you have this. That's it. And that's what it is. And you're like, wait.
And it's like expecting you to be some forensic fucking like observant, like all the signs and everything.
Right. And I guess they were making the point specifically about with like Lyme disease, how Lyme disease always gets misdiagnosed very often, and everything's kind of lumped into just this one solution.
I feel really tired of my muscles Lyme disease.
Yeah.
It's like they didn't even ask you like, did you just get done running a marathon?
Right. Exactly. And so where that leads to is just, okay, what do you even need a doctor for? You just fill in this bubble survey and okay, now here's your diagnosis. Yes, you have nighttime nervousness. Here's your prescription.
I was just thinking like they're trying to break down gender identity. The next thing will be age. And the fear of most people, I think, is like, oh, they're going to make it so like pedophiles can have sex with kids or something. And I don't think that, I mean, I'm not saying that it won't go that way, but think of it more like this. Like I keep getting these fucking emails from my bank talking about debit card for your kids. Like I can give my kids a debit card. I'm like, don't you know my kids are like 5 and younger?
They do know that.
Maybe they do. And it's like, imagine when children are autonomous. They should have their own debit cards, and they should, like, so imagine a child can just go on their phone and be like, yep, I feel like a girl, and then get the prescription right there, and like don't even have to get parents' permission.
Yeah. Well,
It's
that's
just
scary.
because like we're not even taking responsibility at all for educating kids properly, and then now we're gonna pretend like they just come into the world like fucking knowing everything. That's kind of what we're pretending.
Yeah.
It kind of shows it. It's like the people who are running our system, who are in politics, who are making media and so forth, they're just children. That's why fucking Marvel's so popular. Star Wars and all that shit. It's like we're just kids.
Well, we're definitely very immature as a people, and I can see that, and that's really scary because there's no going back from that. Once you're like, oh, okay, it's children are autonomous, they can make their own decisions and all that. Who's going to be the one to say, hey, no, you can't, the kids can't make these decisions, their brains are not fully formed, that like who's going to step in and actually
be like telling black people they have to go back to the plantations?
It would be like that.
You don't want to be that guy at that point.
That's what people be, right? He's like, oh, you're saying kids don't have rights? Kids don't have rights? Like that's what it would become. Because
that's kind of like with the whole point with women, where like they're like, oh, you're saying women should just be slaves again or something. And you're like, no.
And look at how ridiculous the logic is right now. And people are like, fine, fuck it. Like, I guess we'll go along with it. You don't think that shit's gonna happen when it comes to the kids? Yeah. It's gonna be the exact same ridiculousness that we're seeing right now that people are going along with is the exact same thing that we're gonna see for those kids. And I've been mulling over this thought of how this is not the first time we've built a society, right? And then this society has a crash, right? Or a major crash where the society comes completely tumbling down.
Just real quick, a lot of people don't realize that's what Atlantis was.
Right.
You could just look into the history and stuff. Like that's actually what happened. There was a whole civilization before that people don't even know about. It's like not taught in schools or anything. And it wasn't under the sea and like all this like fucking Aquaman shit. That's not what it was. That's all just like mythology shit. But there have been civilizations that have gotten way past where we are at now in a different context and fucking destroyed it because of the same point of not having a clear starting point. I mean, we can even go into history that we know about, like Rome. You can talk about that, for example.
Right. Yeah. That's like the point of what I'm seeing right now is, I guess, imagine being in those previous civilizations and then not realizing what the purpose is, not realizing what you're doing, and then completely destroying it, and then getting another opportunity, and you're here again. It's like, okay, great. We have an opportunity to actually change that, to actually stop participating in the same bullshit that we've been participating in that's brought us to the point of we completely fucked it over. And now we're like, okay, look here. I guess the question that always comes to my mind is, what would you do in that situation? Because you ever think about, man, if I was in Rome, if I was in Rome, I would do this. If I was, in those times or whatever, people always feel that way. Like, what would you actually do? This is where we're at right now. What are you actually going to do?
The context of history shouldn't matter. It should matter what's the choice you're faced with and who are you and what principles you have. And it's cool now because if you think about it, like, it seems like really dire and we always talk about the negatives, but it's so simple for us to change it. The difference though, it's like, you know what, maybe we'll just have to go in 5 minutes, but to kind of tie it back to the event point, look at how long, because we've known you for a while now, and it's like, look at how long it took to get to the point where you can have an event like that. And everybody there is like really fully embracing the point and showing the result of it. And obviously people are in different points in their timeline and some are new and so forth, but everybody there had results.
Yeah.
Everybody there had something significant or many things in their life that have changed significantly. I mean, look at Asif had to go early because Maylat, probably stuff with the baby and everything, but look, they're married. They've got a baby.
Yeah.
Like, oh, and at the event, we had another couple get engaged.
Yeah.
And we had another couple announce that they were going to have a kid, like they are pregnant already.
Yeah. And another couple announced that they were married, that they got married.
Who was that?
Seth and Amy.
Oh, right. Okay. I was like, yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, right. Okay, yeah. We had somebody announce they were married. Somebody announced they got engaged there, right?
Yeah.
And then we had another couple announce that they were gonna have a kid. Like that was really cool.
Yeah.
And so I guess to kind of wrap it up, it's like, yeah, we can go about the doom and gloom and the negativity, and like we're just talking about what everyone else is talking about. That's really all we're doing. We're just highlighting it and looking at the insanity of it. But the solution is so simple. It's like children have to develop an effective vocabulary. That's why I'm always talking about Max and Seneca. I'm always talking about the kids to show like we're not really doing anything special. We're not like special people. We're just using the tools and we've integrated the information that has been presented to us that makes sense, and we've learned it and we've applied it with our kids and with ourselves. We've worked on ourselves, we've supported other people, and now we're creating a new generation collectively of children that are highly effective. So they'll be able to sort out the problems that we didn't have time to use that as an excuse, like, oh, well, let's let them sort it out. We're sorting out what we can, and they'll be prepared to even go further than that and work together. I mean, imagine what the events are going to be like when it's like the kids are basically adults.
Yeah.
Compared to what we have now, it's going to be a whole nother level, right?
Yeah.
So, I know probably not a lot of people are watching this who are not already in self-perfected, but if you aren't, I really suggest that you reach out, like however you found out about this podcast or what we're doing, reach out to one of us or reach out to someone in the group or whoever told you about it and really ask them to show you like what Technotutor is all about, what the principles are about. Find a clubhouse near you, or you could start one. I mean, there's certain requirements that we're going to have of your ability to start a clubhouse, but you could put yourself in that process of doing it. So it can take time, right? Which is fine. You have to prepare yourself. You can't just randomly start a clubhouse and be like, oh, my clubhouse is going to be about Pokemon. Like, no, it's got to be about the principles and the tools and so forth. You have to walk the process, right? Most importantly, I would say connect with other people in the community, but then now look to those events that we're having. Make sure you get to those events. And there are requirements to be able to go to the events too. We don't want just anybody showing up randomly who's like, convince me. We want people who are already like, I'm in this, I'm doing it, I'm here to give as well as receive. That's what this is all about, right?
Yeah.
So other than that, we got the Friday night hangouts. We got our self-perfected or Technotutor exclusive calls within self-perfected, like our parenting and self-leaders club, and there's a women's group and so forth. So check those things out. When I say check them out, the easiest way to do is just join self-perfected on Facebook. Search it up. What is it? It's facebook.com/self-perfected. It's all one word, right?
Yeah.
I think that's right. Well, you can search self-perfected in the search bar on Facebook as well. And any final thoughts, Drake?
No, that was a pretty good wrap up. We'll see you guys next week.
Here we go. Ready? Wait. All right. Bye, everybody.